Podcasts on UNC-TV.org are made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.
Our next contest is one that's taken shape quickly, and it's making for a much longer ballot. After Judge Jim Wynn was confirmed in August as a federal court of appeals judge, more than a dozen people filed papers to take his place at the state level. State elections officials are employing a different technique to tally the votes. It's called instant runoff voting, or IRV. And here to explain how IRV works and why it's necessary is Damon Circosta, the executive director for the North Carolina Center for Voter Education. Damon, thanks for being here.
Pleasure to be here, Rob.
12 candidates, instant runoff voting. How did we get here? How did all of this transpire?
Well, what had happened is Judge Jim Wynn was appointed to the federal bench and his seat became vacant after there was already a primary. So there was no real time to have another separate primary election. So this instant runoff voting is a way for voters to essentially have a primary and a general election kind of all at the same time.
Gotcha. So how does this work? What are folks going to see when they get into the ballot? What are they going to need to do?
So what they're going to see is a list of candidates. It'll be towards the end of the ballot. And instead of going in there and just marking your first choice, you mark your first choice, and then you mark a couple of backups. So assuming that your first choice doesn't get 50% or isn't in the runoff already, they'll look at your second and third choice ballot, and that'll give you an opportunity to still have a say in who wins this seat in the runoff phase of the election.
And so as I understand it, the Board of Elections officials tally all the votes, and then one person comes out maybe with enough to be first, and then they add some of the other votes to that total.
Yeah, so essentially how it works is this. It's a plan to have a backup choice. So we'll go in the first round of voting from 13 candidates down to 2 candidates. After that, if your first choice candidate isn't in one of those 2, but one of your second or third, your backup choices are, then you still get to have a say and still have a vote. So essentially what we're trying to do here is 2 things. One, we're trying to get more people involved in this election. If we were to hold a runoff election sometime in December, no one would show up. And 2, we're trying to effectuate some cost savings. Running an entirely separate statewide election would be expensive, and this is a way to save a little money.
How unique a situation is this? There's been some IRV, instant runoff voting, in the past, but ever anything on this scale?
In the modern era, this is the first statewide instant runoff voting in the country. Now, it's unique in the sense of running for judges or running for elected office, but there are some other places that instant runoff voting is deployed. The Heisman Trophy is selected using an instant runoff voting method.
Is it really?
Yeah.
So Mark Ingram has IRV to thank, huh, for winning last year. Bits of advice, warnings, tidbits that people should keep in their minds as they're making their selections? What should folks be doing?
The first thing that voters need to do is they need to do their homework. You're going to see several candidates this evening, and you're going to learn more about them. But you can't just pick your favorite. You need to make sure that you have some backup choices. So it's important that voters do their homework, learn about the candidates, and then when they go into the ballot booth, they need to mark their first choice and then 2 backup choices, a second and a third choice.
And then those votes are tallied in that?
Certainly. Now, it's going to be an instant runoff for the voter, but this is going to take the State Board of Elections some time to tally. So we're going to have to be patient, but it's important that the State Board of Elections knows, and they do, that it's more important that we get this tally right than we get it fast. So we'll go in, we'll do our job as voters, and then we'll leave it to the elections officials to make sure that it comes out accurate as it has in the past.
Is North Carolina getting some attention nationally, or other states kind of watching how this goes?
Yes, there's a fair amount of attention on North Carolina. One of the things that I think North Carolina has a long and proud history of is doing a pretty good job with our actual voting apparatus. And so we're extremely pleased to be testing this out. We're going to have to see how it works, and then we're going to make sure as voters we stay engaged in the process all the way through.
All right. Well, Damon Circosta, thanks so much for stopping by. Some important information. This is going to be an election to remember, if only for that reason, having IRV.
Well, thank you, Rob.
Podcasts on UNC-TV.org are made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.